Cześć, nazywam się Radek Orszewski i zapraszam Was na Kanban przy kawie. Podcast o tym, jak zwinnie, sprawnie i efektywnie zarządzać pracą. Czy marzy Wam się może skrócenie czasu realizacji i dostarczania na przykład nowej funkcjonalności z 6 tygodni do 4 dni, a może 4 godzin? To nie jest ściema. Taki efekt pracy jako CTO osiągnął w swojej firmie Steve Pereira, mój dzisiejszy gość, i technikę, której użył, nazwał flow engineering. Nie był na tyle samolubny, żeby trzymać ją dla siebie. Razem ze współautorem napisał pod tym samym tytułem książkę i dziś będzie moim i waszym gościem, do czego serdecznie wysłuchania was zapraszam. Zanim poznamy Steve'a, zanim poznamy historię i być może inspirację tego, jak właśnie próbować uzdrowić ten proces dostarczania, zaczynając od wizualizacji, kilka słów o podcaście. Wielkie dzięki, jeśli słuchasz tego odcinka jako pierwszego, jeśli jako któregoś z kolei tym bardziej, bo podcast ma już dobrych parę lat. Cały czas próbujemy dotrzeć do nowej grupy słuchaczy, stąd wielka prośba, jeśli to, co dzisiaj wysłuchasz, albo jakikolwiek inny odcinek w przyszłości uznasz za cenny, to naprawdę najdrobniejszą rzeczą, jaką możesz zrobić, jest napisanie mu dobrej opinii w tym serwisie, w którym tego podcastu słuchasz. Wysłanie linka i spowodowanie tego, że ktoś zostanie naszym subskrybentem, również bardzo pomaga. Stąd wielka prośba, jeśli cenisz, bo Kanban przy kawie w jakiś sposób Ci pomógł, może do czegoś zainspirował, daj znać innym. To naprawdę nam pomoże, no właśnie, zrobić to samo względem innych osób. Cały czas też możesz oczywiście dołączyć do grona patronów. Ostatnio do grona patronów dołączył ponownie Krzysiek, za co serdecznie dziękujemy. I pamiętajcie, że Kanban przy kawie dzieje się również dzięki temu, że ja, Radek Orszewski, działam jako osoba, która prowadzi szkolenia, konsultacje, pomoc organizacjom w organizacji pracy pod marką Lean Agile Ninja i taką też mamy domenę, trudną na recepcjach hotelowych do przeliterowania, ale Lean Agile pisane razem i .ninja. I zapraszam Was do wywiadu ze Steve'em. So today we have the episode with an interview, and I have a special guest, as you're going to learn, a co-author of a book or maybe a co-author of a concept. But before we meet him like in details, maybe we'll ask him to introduce himself. We're going to talk about, as you probably know from the episode title, about flow, or precisely flow engineering. And I want to start with like maybe a controversial question. Steve, do you feel we have a problem with like establishing, maintaining the flow of work in our industry?
I would say we do. I hear from a lot of people. I think we all feel like we struggle to get things done, right?
Mm-hmm.
Everything seems much harder than it should be, even in the age of AI. And I think
I was going to ask about it.
and I think it's actually, things are about to get worse rather than better, because the possibilities expanding, the ability to do more with less gives us more work in progress to juggle, more things to review, more architecture to add complexity. We're all going to be supervising agents soon, and that has its own juggling and distraction involved. We potentially are even getting further and further away from the work as a result of these changes. And all of those conditions, I think, make it difficult for us to really get things done. It's easier than ever to start things. And I believe it might be harder than ever to finish them.
Oh, okay. That's interesting. And I'm pretty sure our listeners who are familiar with the concept behind Kanban, the podcast is entitled Kanban przy kawie, so Kanban over coffee, probably may feel the pains of like lots of work in progress and starting too many initiatives, too many topics or threads. Okay, and don't you feel we have enough tools to resolve it? We have Kanban itself, we have value stream mapping. I think we can find it even in your LinkedIn description that you're the value stream person. And I don't know what else. We met personally, I guess, during the Team Topologies conference some years back, right? And then we have word lay mapping and whatnot. So you say we should look into Google or ask our agent for flow engineering. Why?
Yeah, why? I think that what was missing when I set out to find a solution to this problem of not getting enough done, having too much time spent not finishing work, a lack of clarity on how things were going and where we should focus our energy to improve throughput or getting things done, be more effective, be more efficient, be more focused on value and ultimate, customer outcomes and business outcomes. I see all of those tools or methodologies or frames as pieces of the puzzle, but nothing was actually driving to what we call in the book effective action. You can spend a lot of time mapping. You can spend a lot of time looking at your system. You can spend a lot of time working, right? In a Kanban context, you can be operating and there could be tons of activity happening. But it's not always clear that things are working as well as they could. And it's definitely difficult to find out what is the one area that we should focus to improve performance, to improve outcomes. And that's what I was looking for. And I didn't find that actually drove me to build the first iterations of flow engineering. It was a combination of first clarifying what are we trying to do, because I think we lose sight of that. Then what are we doing today and how's that going? Then what is the biggest opportunity for us to improve within what we're doing today? And then finally, how do we actually act on what we discover? There's so much activity around finding opportunities, but how often do we act on those opportunities? And how often can we make the space to act on those opportunities? That's what I find is often missing. We all have probably been in a retro where we say, okay, we have 50 things we can improve. And what happens after the retro is, we'll try harder next time. We'll try harder in the next sprint. We'll try harder. But there's very seldom effective action that changes the system of work. And that's what flow engineering is all about.
Okay. I'm pretty sure this, kind of recall of a retro with lots of findings but not many actions is like everyday life for our listeners, knowing their profiles. And tell us then why any of them should, be interested in flow engineering, because, I'm just wondering, who is it for? What you just said about the outcomes, about focus, sounds very much like things that product people or process people are focused on. On the other hand, the technique, if I may call it this way, is called flow engineering. So it sounds technical. So who do you think it's for the most?
The target in the very earliest stages was to solve my own problems. I was a CTO, but I was primarily focused on almost like a VP engineering set of responsibilities. I had to get a lot done with limited resources, limited time, limited
as always,
all the constraints that we all have. So the primary focus was, how do I solve my problems? And the very earliest stages were just solving the problems of delivery for my role as a technical leader. And the engineering piece has two purposes. One, I think that we should see workflow as an engineering challenge, right? I think that process is something that people have negative associations with. It's usually seen as a cost that we don't want to invest in. Very few people actually own this problem of improving process and flow. But I think there's a huge opportunity for engineers, people who solve problems, to dedicate some of their attention to how the work is working, how the work is working rather than the products of the work, the outputs. How we get to the outputs, I think, is something that engineers really, they bear the cost of poor process, right? They're often the victims of poor process. So I wanted something that resonated with not only technical leaders, but also technical staff who can get excited about automating things, thinking about workflow as an engineering challenge, as a problem-solving opportunity. Because I think that makes it actionable. I think that makes it tangible. I think it makes it exciting and fun and creative. So that's the reason for the framing as an engineering challenge. Because I think actually more and more, this is becoming an engineering challenge. We're now, if we're talking about orchestrating teams of agents, and, there's all the same challenges, but now they're ramped up. They're all an order of magnitude more complicated. And so this really is an engineering challenge. And I think engineers actually have all the tools, all of the skills and capabilities to really do this very well. But that's not to say that it isn't helpful for product people. I think product people really want to know, why can't we get more done? Why is it taking so long? So it does appeal to product people. It does appeal to all kinds of different roles. I've applied it in sales for sales process. We've applied it in marketing and content creation, in distribution, in onboarding and other HR activities. We're all trying to get more done. And we're all trying to reduce friction and delay and waste and improve quality. So it really applies to anyone who finds himself in a situation where they're asking that question. Why is this so hard? Why does this take so long?
Yeah, from what we just heard, I believe it's like interesting that it's so, I would say, inclusive for technical people, because I believe we have, if not more than a decade of, delegating such accountability or like even responsibility, who designs the process, who improves the process, to people who are like strictly not technical. And like you say, engineers very often were like left alone and, just do the work as we design it. And now you're talking about like involving at least these people or these roles. Okay, so let's say I've never heard about flow engineering before, but now I heard about it. And probably the best thing that comes to my mind is like, why don't I invite Steve Pereira to my company? So maybe now it's the time to introduce you to our listeners, like before we give some useful hints, of course, besides reading the book. So Steve, tell our listeners how, who you are, except what you just told us about like your situation.
Sure, yeah.
Like,
I mean, I touched on a little bit of it. Like I came to this directly from a CTO role where we had very, very challenging throughput problem. We were onboarding clients rapidly, but we had a very onerous, expensive, time-consuming, annoying way of onboarding all these clients. And I was looking at a gigantic backlog of people that we had to get into the system because we needed, you want your customers to be able to use it, the product, give you money, and give you feedback. And this was taking forever. And we looked at the backlog, and at the current rate of flow, it was impossible for us to really survive as a company. So it was an existential crisis that drove me
Now
to
or never.
map out what are we currently doing, who's doing it, how long does it take, to answer that question of where should we focus to make this better? Where's the opportunity to cut this? And so we actually went from a 6-week process down to 4 days. And then we went to 4 hours almost the day after. So very, very quickly, just by seeing what was happening and mapping it out. And the first maps that I did were just Google Sheets. It was just get the information and look at it. But that really changed my life as a technical leader. I saw this dramatic improvement almost overnight, and we didn't have to do anything really serious to improve that flow. It was just a question of organization and who's doing what and how do we move the work. So that was the light bulb moment. And I was familiar with value stream mapping before that. I'd heard about it. I'd seen it before, but it was very manufacturing focused. There's lots of symbols involved. You've got factory icons and trucks and stuff, and doesn't really speak to somebody in a digital context. And so flow engineering was really just about simplifying all that down. But, in terms of my history, what brought me here is that I've always been really sensitive to things being difficult, things taking too long, not knowing what's going on. And so I've always kind of looked for visual understanding, clear illustrations of what's happening, where should I focus, where am I going to waste my time if I don't have it right. So it's been a long, multiple decades I've been in technology, but always sort of focused on this area of workflow. That was always kind of my primary focus.
Okay. And then you decided to publish as a book together with your co-author, correct?
Yeah. So the story behind the book is Andrew and I met at the DevOps Enterprise Summit in 2019, and I was running a birds of a feather discussion, just a small group discussion about value stream mapping. And at the end of the session, Andrew asked me, what book would you recommend if people wanted to know more about value stream mapping? And I told him about Karen's book. Karen Martin has the kind of the Bible of value stream mapping. An excellent book. She actually wrote the foreword to our book, and we're huge fans of Karen's. But Karen's book wasn't really written for the DevOps Enterprise Summit audience, right? Like digital focused organizations, organizations with a lot of technical complications, technical debt, product focused teams, all of these things that are very common in tech companies or big companies that just have giant tech organizations, right? So we set off on this journey to write this book. We rewrote it about 3 times from scratch. And for me, it was a massive learning opportunity to really test out the concepts in different contexts and really break it down into instruction that people could follow when they're not me and they don't have all my experience and context. So I think it was a really good exercise to just pull all of this out of my head and, combine it with Andrew's view, which is very much about leadership and perspective and collaboration and alignment. So a lot went into writing the book that I think is really important, whether you're doing flow engineering or not. If you're just working with groups of people, I think there's a lot in there for solving these problems of collaboration and scale and complexity.
Okay, that's interesting story. That you were wondering what kind of book to recommend, so you found that there's no such book. So why don't we write it, right, together with Andrew? And here we have it. And I want to ask, maybe among our listeners there are people who will approach you and say, "Yeah, Steve, come to us." But if they are not, let's just say, so lucky to bring you on board as a consultant or advisor, I'm pretty sure many people are like dreaming about at least, not even half of what you said. Like you said, from 6 weeks to 4 days, right? You shortened the delivery time. I'm pretty sure there are people who would say, I want to have, 3 weeks instead of 6. I would be still happy. So how to start with it? Yeah, of course we can recommend the book, but since it's a couple of years since the book was published, maybe there's a different path you recommend our listeners how to start with learning more about flow engineering.
There's a lot of material now out. There's YouTube videos of talks at conferences and different sessions where we look at it from different angles. There's also an online course if folks want to kind of step through it in that way. But one of the best ways, I think, to get started with this is to actually play the game. So there's a game version of flow engineering. It's just a simple, prototypical flow of, product development that we are probably all familiar with. But you could swap it for your context. You could swap the example for incident response, if that's your case, or onboarding very easily. And the idea behind the game is just to lay out a workflow, just map out an example, and then randomly generate some data, randomly generate how long it takes to do every stage and the wait time between every stage. And then just observe what that tells you, right? So when you look at the map and the data, what pops out to you? What shows up as a hotspot is what we talk about is, what are the areas that are outliers? What's taking more time than anything else? And just that exercise gets you started in a couple of different ways. One is just thinking about the work in a more abstract, large-scale way, just to step back from the work to think about how does this actually flow? And then what happens when we understand the data behind the workflow, right? Once you add data to that picture, then all of a sudden you have some differentiation between one activity and the other activities. Something shows up as where most of the time is being spent or wasted. And what that allows us to do is say that we don't have problems everywhere that are all equally consequential. There's always one area that will drive much more improvement, much more performance than anything else that we could focus on. So we go from a situation where we have all this trouble, all this friction, all this waste, everything seems impossible. And how are we going to get out of this situation to, okay, now we have a clear focal point and we can all align and tackle it together. We can all try to figure out how to break that down or fix it. And that's a very easy way to start, a very natural way. It's fun to start. And it avoids a lot of the complicated things that happen when you do this for real. It's not, easy to do when you do it with a real group of people on a real workflow, because there's real people's feelings and roles and responsibilities and perspectives involved in that. So the game really gives you a trial run that avoids all of that political and personal challenge. But really, that's where the benefit comes from, is when you map it for real and you really talk about the fact that I'm responsible for this area, but the activity that happens before I get the work isn't satisfying the acceptance criteria that allows me to do my work properly. So I have to go back to them, or I spend a lot of time looking for information that could be provided or could be in clearer form. And we really do get into the details, but we don't go into the weeds across the entire workflow. Again, we're looking at the initial data that says this area is an area that we should focus on and we should understand it. So let's break it down there and understand it. We don't have to spend, in some cases, organizations that do value stream mapping, they take 2 weeks to make a map that ends up being 2,000 stages. That's a real example. 2,000 stages. Everyone's exhausted. No one knows what they've produced. Nobody wants to look at it ever again. People are more confused than when they started. So we just want something very simple that says, we don't have to worry about everything. Let's all worry about this one area that's causing us most of the trouble.
Okay. And what's next? So we play the game. It's a safe environment. We can find some parallels to our work. Let's try. We avoid this 2 weeks mapping. And you mentioned actionable plan, right? Like, okay, what would you say people should be ready for? Is it like a weeks long mission? Is it full-time job? How would they let's just say judge if that was worth investing, right? We very often find these organizations, like you said, okay, we have the retro, we have our whatever blocker clustering session, whatever you do, right? And we find the same things over and over again. And we are too tired to act upon.
Yeah, this is very common. I mean, this is a reason why it's so lightweight. We try and make it as lean as possible for a couple of reasons. One, people are busy, right? And it's very difficult for people to step away from the work.
Right.
You could be sawing with a dull saw all day long. You can even be sawing the wrong tree. But if you step away and you think about that for a moment, somebody is likely to say, well, wait a second, what are you doing? Why are you not sawing? Right? So we all are very busy, and we take that very seriously in flow engineering. We assume that nobody cares and nobody has time. Two very important things, right? Assuming nobody cares means that we have to make this valuable. One of the ways it's valuable is immediately upon mapping a value stream, in every single case I've ever heard of and participated in, we save 20% of the lead time immediately. So right after the session, we've already eliminated a bunch of waste because we have a bunch of things that we've discovered that we can just stop doing tomorrow, or we can do them slightly differently. And it makes a dramatic improvement. And that pays for the activity easily, right? More than enough. That's even before you start doing real automation or workflow changes at all. So the ROI is very high. You also get a stronger sense of confidence that you now know what's happening, where to focus. Everybody's on the same page. Everybody feels more empowered about their work, that we are actually doing things to improve instead of constantly struggling or watching things just get worse and worse. So there's a big morale boost out of it. But also we attach these things to real business outcomes. It's not improving for the sake of improving, even though that's valuable. The first activity that we do is outcome mapping. And we do outcome mapping to pick something that's really important to the organization. And that means we're considering what's important to customers, what's important to the teams that are involved in this, whether we have, some OKRs or some big, hairy, audacious goal that we're trying to accomplish. And we're doing flow engineering in service of that. Something we're not doing flow engineering for the sake of doing flow engineering. We're doing it for something that's very valuable to the business. So we have return on investment kind of captured from the very start. And we don't do this unless we see much more benefit than the cost. And the other part of it is nobody has time. So we try to make every single workshop, of which there's 5, happen in less than 90 minutes. So the target is 90 minutes, which means that you could fit it in almost anywhere. Okay. You could have one session a day for a week. You could stack it over 2 days. You could even get it done in one day if you wanted to dedicate the entire day to it. So we try to kind of address all the objections that you would have if someone was coming to you and saying, hey, I want you to do some stuff. We want to make that as valuable as possible. So it's hard to say no to, and it's very easy to understand what the benefit is.
Right. Yeah, I guess 90 minutes is usually maybe like a duration of this retro from which we don't take much actionable points, right? So maybe we'll start with like dedicating first one or like retro to the first step. That's really interesting. And you said like 20% is something that you easily find as a relief or improvement. From your experience, is it a one-time activity? Have you seen examples when like after some time we said, oh, okay, you remember like a year ago we did it, and now, okay, it's not so fast, not so good anymore.
Yeah, this is a real challenge with value stream mapping, is that almost everybody has done it or tried to do it at some point, right? I mean, it's not a mystery. It's not a like hidden secret art or something. It's very easy to understand. It can be hard to do, but in a lot of cases, it's done and it doesn't pay off because there's not a clear connection to action. But people do it once and then it kind of sits on a shelf and they never really do it again. The goal of flow engineering and what we kind of design it for is to have one iteration of flow engineering drive enough change to the system that there is a notable difference between the work flow that exists in the current state and the workflow that exists in the future state. What we change into, and that can take, a couple of months to implement, right? If we're knocking off all the items that we've identified as action items for the flow roadmap, and by the time we get through all of those changes, we've changed the system of work. So the map doesn't reflect the current state anymore. It hopefully reflects something closer to the future state, but you know how these things go, right? As you start working, the requirements change, the design changes, the actual result changes. And so what we've kind of structured it for is to create a target future state in an initial pass, then implement those changes over the next 3 months roughly, and then watch the system and measure the flow for the next 3 months. And then at the 6-month point, do it again, because you've now changed the system. There's a new constraint. There's a new area that's holding you back. And now you can find that, focus on that, target that improvement. And this is much easier the second time around and the third time around.
Right.
Because you've already got the maps, you're doing a little bit of refinement, but as you get better at this, it gets faster, and you can really revisit these maps whenever you want, right? It could be every 3 weeks. It could be, in a living document. We usually build these in Miro or Mural or something, and they don't go away after you map. You can continue to iterate on the map as a living document.
Great. Yeah, this is important because, of course, I see many people selling some techniques as one-time effort, one-time activity. Not later, less this week I've heard from one organization that we are already X, no matter what the X means, right? And I say, okay, do you believe you accomplished the state when people won't change, constraints won't change, requirements won't change, and then there's this self-reflection that maybe you are not so great or not so stable in the state that we think we are. Steve, I hope we made our listeners hungry for more. So of course we're going to refer them to your book and to the game. I guess we're going to link it to the episode as well. If anyone would like to find more about you mentioned some videos and hashtags, your last name, how to find you, maybe other place that you would like to refer them to.
Yeah, well, I spend a lot of time on LinkedIn, so you can find me there. I post quite a bit. I also have a Substack newsletter, visibleconsulting.substack.com. And so I put out longer form articles there for anyone who's kind of interested in that. And then I try to, come on as many podcasts and speak at as many conferences as possible and spread this around. There's templates actually on the Miro and Mural marketplaces for anyone who's interested in kind of getting a head start on this. And there's a bunch of resources that we can link to just to make it easier for folks to kind of understand. Okay. What does this really look like, and how might I get started with this? But also, I'm happy to offer a free game session to anyone who's listening. If you want to run this in your company, I'll come and run it with you. It takes about half an hour, so it's really easy to fit into your retros, lunch and learn, or whatever you want. But I love running the game because it's a lot of fun, honestly, and it's usually you learn something about your company.
We like games.
You're using a fictional case. So happy to do that. Happy to connect with folks. And I would love to hear from anyone who's tried this and is frustrated or is interested in more, or they're doing something similar, or they're interested in how this fits in with all the other stuff they're doing with team topologies and Wardley mapping and user needs mapping and whatever it is. I love talking about that as well.
Perfect. Okay, so we're gonna include all these references, links to the podcast episode. So we will originally publish this episode in the beginning of 2026. So if you have New Year resolution that you need to try something new, maybe this will be inspiration to give it a try to flow engineering. Like Steve, you said, if any of you will give it a try, find any success or great or small success stories, let us know. That would be great it would be great to know that it lives with the people. Yeah, Steve, thank you very much for your time. I know that you're quite busy, so huge thanks for finding time to talk to me and talk to all our listeners. Who knows? Maybe we'll meet again. You said the conferences. We have quite cool conferences in Poland. Have you been to Poland?
I have been to Poland, and I would love to come back for a conference or any other reason. So it would be great to meet up in person.
Okay, yeah, so we'll add it to our Kanban board. Okay, Steve.
Exactly.
Steve, huge thanks. That's been really a pleasure.
Thank you very much. It's my pleasure.
Dzięki wielkie za wysłuchanie tego odcinka. Mam nadzieję, że było pomocnie. Chcę powiedzieć o źródłach, o których mówił Steve. W opisie tego odcinka znajdziecie link do strony dedykowanej temu odcinkowi podcastu na kanbanprzykawie.pl i tam znajdziecie źródła, o których Steve mówił, a więc jego blog na Substacku, wzorce do właśnie pracy z Flow Engineering, zarówno w bibliotekach Murala, jak i Miro, a także link do gry, o której mówił, oraz link do książki. Książkę możecie w języku angielskim znaleźć w takich serwisach wielkich książkowych. Tutaj nie będę nikogo reklamował, ale też również w wersji audio, jeśli to kogoś to bardziej przemawia. I raz jeszcze prośba o to, jeśli ten odcinek był dla Was cenny, to koniecznie dajcie znać innym, albo w postaci tego, że wy wstawicie mu dobrą opinię na serwisie, na którym tego słuchacie, albo odcinek polecicie, tak żebyśmy mieli więcej subskrybentów, których jest chyba teraz ze 3,5 tysiąca, na przykład na samym Spotify'u. Dobrze, wielkie dzięki moi kochani i do usłyszenia kolejnym razem. Mówił Radek Orszewski. Cześć!
Free audio post-production by alphonic.com.